Welcome to Teens Talk Spokane, hosted by the Chase Youth Commission. The commission is made up of appointed high schoolers and able to work with local government officials to represent Spokane's youth. Teens Talk Spokane is a series of interviews that aims to create a greater understanding of our community and people who work to support it. Our questions have been chosen through relevancy to the priorities of Spokane's youth and also current issues and topics. Today, we are so happy to introduce Mr. Jerrall Haynes, President of the Board of Directors for Spokane Public Schools, the fourth largest district in the state. Directly out of high school in 2007, Haynes served in the United States Air Force, holding the rank of Staff Sergeant assigned to Fairchild Air Force Base. He currently operates a fitness gym and is active in the local branch of the NAACP and is a top-tier advocate and ally for young people in Spokane. So with that, we can jump right in. Question one, could you talk a little bit about your experience running for the school board?
Oh yeah, it was an interesting experience. I was actually still active duty in the Air Force, full time, working out at Fairchild Air Force Base at night, overnight, and I was a full-time college student at the time still, and running the campaign. So luckily, my campaign manager was a friend of mine, just recently separated from the military and stayed here in Spokane, so he had a lot more free time on his hands. So it was interesting, you know, meeting so many people, learning so many new things about Spokane along the way. It was tiring, well worth it. I ran against a 20-year incumbent. That wasn't actually supposed to happen. I filed for a different seat, and he switched seats to run against me and someone else because, you know, we're newer, and but it ended up working out just fine.
Nice. So our next question is, who do you represent in your position, and what advice would you give to those who would like to follow the path of running for some sort of office?
Yeah, so first and foremost, we represent people like you all, right? The students in Spokane. But outside of that, we represent our staff and our larger community as a whole. I was actually just having a conversation with our superintendent the other day about making sure, because our schools impact our larger community, get left out of the discussion of supporting our larger community a lot of the time, but making sure we're also basing some of our decisions off of that, about how will this impact our community long term.
What are some of the challenges you face regularly as board president? And is that like between people or with community?
I'd say one of the biggest challenges is living in Spokane. We live in a purple community, right? So working on the school board and being a school board member is completely nonpartisan, but that doesn't stop our community members from being partisan, right? And our community is almost split down the middle, right? And so it's very, very difficult to make decisions that satisfy the majority of our community, right? Or to even cater our messaging to make sure people are able to digest the facts and the information that we need to be able to put out there so that people can make proper informed decisions. So that's a huge part. Battling misinformation is huge, not only on a national scale, but even here locally, right? Just about every other week that I hear something else that is not true, that's being attributed to our school district. And so trying to get ahead of those things is important too.
What areas of your work relate, hold up, I can't see that. What areas of your work relate to you specifically, and what problems are you currently working to address?
All of our work relates specifically to students. You know, whether it's us dealing with the budget, curriculum, hirings and firings, building new buildings, our bus routes, safety and security, all of it is built around trying to find the best ways to support students and staff. So I guess that's kind of a difficult question to answer, but literally everything that we do relates back to students and students' well-being. And the second part was what are we currently working on? Well, what we have coming up other than COVID, right? And trying to reopen schools in a safe manner. We also have the levy that's coming up on Tuesday. After that, we'll all be able to breathe so much easier. But we also, throughout the course of this year, we're working on our strategic plan that will drive all of the school district's work for the next 5 to 6 years. So that's really, really important. A few of us as a board and as district leadership have a real strong interest in trying to make sure we take our time and really try to reimagine education and how we deliver education to all of you and try to fix some of the historical issues that educational institutions have.
For sure, for sure. And then almost like you read my mind here, you know, we have a levy coming up on February 9th for anybody
yeah.
who's listening. This has been, you know, largely student-led, lots of movement here to get out the vote. And so my question for you, we're staying nonpartisan here. What information do you think the community should have in making its decision to pass or reject the levy renewal?
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of information. First, you know, really dive deep and really understand what all our local levies pay for, right? We, like you mentioned, we have the 4th largest school district in the state of Washington. So we have 30,000 students, and quite honestly, our state budget isn't enough. Our state would only pay for 5 nurses with 30,000 students here in Spokane Public Schools. We have 54 different school sites, and 5 nurses dealing with 30,000 students is impossible, right? Especially even before a pandemic, right? But during a pandemic, there's just no way that we'd be able to get anything done. And our award-winning COVID reopening plan is largely in part due to the work that our nursing staff has been able to accomplish with their contact tracing. So we've been able to keep a really, really low rate of transmissions in our school buildings because of our nursing staff. We pay for extra counselors, extracurricular activities, whether it's sports, art, band, drama, you name it, all comes out of our local levy. Teachers training, right? When we all know that there's a lot of work to be done in our educational system, you know, around biases, you know, racial inequities, you name it. Our levies pay for that training to make sure that our teachers have everything that they need readily available to them so that they can do their best job to creating excellence for everyone here in Spokane. But ultimately, like I mentioned before, that conversation that I was having with our superintendent, making sure to really know and understand the impacts that an underfunded school system will have on our broader community. So for the people in our community who don't have children, or maybe, you know, have children that are in private school, or, you know, that are retirees, you name it, really make sure you understand that our school system plays a major part on the health and vitality of our larger community, right? So our outcomes in our school will impact your neighborhoods, your communities for years and years to come. So.
Do you see an area where youth voice is lacking, and how do you plan to include more youth in the whole school board?
Yeah, I think youth voice is lacking in every area, and it's not the youth's fault, honestly. Every single time I speak to any of our students in Spokane, you all have amazing ideas and can talk for hours about the things that you think should happen. And I think us as adults and leaders in the school district haven't done a great job at purposely going out and seeking out students' voices. All of you here, I've seen each of you in many different forms really advocating and making sure your voices are heard, you know, whether it's being an advisor to the school board, being, you know, on the student advisory council for environmental justice, right? You all do an amazing job when you're given the opportunity and the platform in order to do so. And I think we need to do a better job as adults and as leaders in the school district of creating that space for students' voices to be heard.
So there's this discussion about going back to in-person learning. Are you excited for that transition? And do you see any issues with that? Any strong concerns?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, we live in a really divided community, right? In Spokane Public Schools, we've taken a very slow, thoughtful, methodical approach to reopening schools. And just so people know and understand, we've gotten backlash about that from both sides, right? We get emails every single day from parents and students who tell us we're crazy for having students in the buildings at all right now. And we get just as many phone calls and emails from parents and students that are upset that we don't have everyone back in the buildings right now. So, so I personally am excited that we have been able to continue to move forward and do plan on continuing to move forward because we miss you all, right? We miss being able to see our students. That's what we do. That's our job. That's at the core of every single one of us. We want to be able to lay hands and eyes on each and every one of you to make sure that you're receiving all the supports that you want. And that was the heartbreaking thing about, you know, March when schools had to completely shut down. We were all worried about, man, how are we going to see our students, right? How are we going to make sure they're doing good, which is why we wanted to make sure we kept being able to feed a lot of our students throughout this entire pandemic, right? We've given away over 1.3 million free meals since the beginning, since March shutdowns, you know. So I'm excited, but there are challenges, right? Bringing back you all's grade level secondary schools, there's a lot of commingling and changing and people changing classrooms and stuff. That is going to create a major difficulty when it comes to contact tracing. So our nursing staff has already been working really hard, and we're going to try to continue to support them as much as humanly possible through this transition and as we continue to move forward so that we can keep supporting you all.
With that being said, you work within a school government. What systems do you uphold in your position, and are there any that you are working to disrupt?
Wow, that's a good question. Okay, I'll be honest here for a moment. I've been honest this whole time, but I'm going to get a little more personal here, right? When I first got elected to the school board, I was 25 years old. A part of my process was knowing and understanding that there was still a whole lot that I needed to learn and understand, right? Me being 25, becoming a school board member, I had just gained access to tables and rooms that people that historically look like me and come from where I come from don't have access to. So I knew I had a lot to learn. So I'll be honest and say that easily my first year or so as a school board member, I upheld a lot of the same, you know, racist institutions that we all experience and live in, right? But I did so using it as a learning opportunity. I watched, I listened, I read, I studied everything so that I could really start to develop a firm understanding and a real plan on how to really make authentic, real, impactful changes to this major institution, right? I wasn't satisfied with symbolic victories or wins that at the end of the day really didn't make a difference in the lives of students or families in our community. So I did uphold some things, and by that I mean, you know, I was a little more passive because I didn't have a really firm understanding, and I didn't want to start stepping on the wrong toes and make myself ineffective in the long run. But since then, we've been completely overhauling our safety system, our discipline system. Where, as you all know, we just passed a racial equity resolution last summer. That's really going to help move us forward with changing curriculums. We're having deep, thoughtful discussions about changing the modalities and the way that our education is even presented to each and every one of you. We want to make sure that we're providing each student a more individualized education because each of you have different strengths, different weaknesses, and we know and understand, which we've known for a very long time, that one size fits all method just doesn't work. It's inadequate.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then knowing we're running a little short on time, about 3 minutes here, we have just 2 more questions for you. In what ways can the Chase Youth Commission and or the greater youth of Spokane support your work? And in what ways would you like to see youth grow into those positions and platforms like you referenced earlier?
Yeah, learn, learn. as much as you can, as many different perspectives as you can. So like I mentioned a second ago, so that you could truly be impactful and figure out a way to do that and be effective leaders in your community. One of the worst things you can do is try to solve solutions with partial information. I won't name the person, but there was community organizing around a certain topic late in the summer, and engaging with this student and challenging the student to really seek out the facts so that they could really form their own argument and their own viewpoint on the topic. I think that was really impactful, and I think that person is going to go on to accomplish a lot of good in this community and in our country overall. So learn as much as you can, voice your opinions, voice your concerns, and when you know something's not right, speak out and push back against these systems.
Absolutely. So our last question is just, is there anything else that you would like to add to let students and young people in Spokane know about anything at all?
No, just we need all of you. We do. Our work doesn't exist without any of you. We're here to serve you all. So like I said, let your voices be heard and push back. Help one another, lean on each other, and give any leadership, whether it's principal, superintendent, school board members, phone calls, shoot them emails, mail them letters, do whatever it is you need to do in order to make sure your voices are being heard. And if you get any pushback about that, make sure you tell them that I told them that you could do it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate it.
I appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me.